Sandra was 7 months pregnant, standing on her own doorstep with a suitcase while her husband's mistress smirked from the bedroom window. The entire neighborhood watched as her mother-in-law called her worthless, loud enough for every curtain to twitch. But then 2 white Rolls-Royces pulled up to the house, and suddenly every face went pale. That day changed everything. If you love stories where the underdog gets the last laugh and karma hits hard, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And tell me, where in the world are you watching from? Sandra Bennett had always imagined peace would feel lighter than this. The Austin heat pressed against her swollen face, her lower back screamed with every breath, but she refused to sit, refused to collapse, not here, not in front of them. Her suitcase sat heavy in her grip, stuffed with whatever she could grab before Sharon shoved her toward the door. Above her, leaning out of the bedroom window, her bedroom window, was Lila, wearing the silk robe Sandra bought on their Santa Fe anniversary trip. The mistress tilted her head, smiling like she'd won a prize. "She looks like she's about to faint," Lila called down, loud enough for the entire cul-de-sac to hear. "Should have packed faster." Laughter rippled from inside the house. Sharon Montgomery stood on the porch beside Sandra, arms crossed, voice sharp enough to cut glass. 7 months pregnant and still can't keep a man, she announced, making sure the Johnsons across the street heard every word. No wonder Brandon found someone better. A few neighbors gasped, none intervened. Curtains parted. Phones lifted. Screens cracked open. Everyone watched. Sandra had baked pies for these people, babysat their kids, helped during power outages. Now they observed her like she was a scandal in a grocery store tabloid. A cramp twisted through her belly, sharp and urgent. She sucked in air, steadied herself. "Not here. Don't fall here." Brandon finally stepped outside, hands shoved deep in his pockets, eyes fixed somewhere over her shoulder. "Just go stay with your family or something," he muttered. "We need space." Her heart cracked. "My family?" Sandra whispered. "You know I don't." But he turned away before she could finish. He said nothing in her defense. Nothing to stop his mother. Nothing to stop the woman wearing his wife's robe. Coward. Another cramp hit harder, her vision blurred, knees trembling. A neighbor shouted, "She needs help." But no one moved. Sandra gripped her suitcase tighter, tried to step forward. Then a low rumble filled the street. Engines. Deep, heavy ones. The sound didn't belong in their quiet neighborhood. People turned toward the cul-de-sac entrance, shading their eyes against the sun. And everything stopped. 2 white Rolls-Royce Phantoms glided into view, flanked by 3 black Cadillac Escalades, chrome gleaming, presence absolute. The convoy moved with the kind of confidence that didn't ask permission. It simply arrived and demanded attention. The neighborhood collectively held its breath. Phones rose higher. Whispers spread like wildfire. Children stopped mid-pedal on their bikes. Then someone spotted the gold emblem on the lead SUV, Bennett Global Holdings, and the whispers turned to gasps. Because everyone knew that name. Forbes lists. Charity galas. Real estate empires spanning New York to Houston. Tech hubs in San Francisco. Museums in Chicago. The Bennetts weren't just wealthy, they were legacy. And they were here. In this middle-class Austin cul-de-sac. For someone. The cars stopped directly in front of the Montgomery house. Security stepped out first. 6 men in black suits, eyes scanning the street like they were guarding royalty. Then the back doors opened, and 2 tall, sharply dressed men emerged. Adrian Bennett. Julian Bennett. Sandra's breath caught in her throat. No, it can't be. Adrian's eyes found her instantly. His expression shifted from controlled calm to barely restrained fury. He crossed the lawn in 4 long strides, ignoring Sharon, ignoring Brandon, ignoring everyone except his sister. "Sandy." His voice cracked with worry as he reached her, hands hovering like he was afraid she might shatter. "Sweetheart, what happened? Are you hurt?" Sandra couldn't speak, couldn't process that they were real, here, now. Julian stepped up beside his brother, his gaze cold and surgical as it swept over Sharon, then Brandon, then Lila still smirking in the window. When he spoke, his voice cut through the stunned silence like a blade. "Who put their hands on our sister?" Dead silence. Sharon's face drained of color. "Why your sister? That can't be, she never said." Adrian straightened to his full height, his arm protective around Sandra's shoulders. "Sandra Bennett. Our baby sister. 1/3 heir to the Bennett empire." The entire street erupted, gasps, dropped phones, a dog whimpering somewhere in the distance. Julian's jaw tightened. "You never asked about her family, did you?" His tone was ice. "You just assumed she had no one." Brandon stumbled backward, face pale. Wait, Sandra, you never told me. Why would she? Adrian's voice could have frozen fire. So you could love her money instead of her. Sharon tried to speak, but no words came. And in that moment, every assumption, every cruel word, every smug smile, shattered. Sharon found her voice first, though it trembled at the edges. Now wait just a minute. We treated her well, fed her, gave her a home. She turned to the neighbors, hands raised like she was pleading her case to a jury. This girl is lying. She's always been dramatic, always playing the victim. Victim? Julian's laugh was sharp, humorless. Interesting word choice. Lila pulled back from the window, disappearing into the house. Footsteps echoed as she scrambled toward the back door. Brandon stepped forward, palms out in surrender. Look, this is all a misunderstanding. Sandra and I, we've been having issues, sure, but nothing like. Nothing like what? Adrian cut him off. Nothing like throwing your pregnant wife out of her own home. Nothing like your mother screaming insults while the whole neighborhood watched. I didn't throw her out, Brandon's voice cracked. I just asked her to give us space. Space. Julian repeated the word slowly, letting it hang in the air like rotting fruit. Space for your mistress to wear her robe. Brandon's mouth opened, closed, no sound came. Sandra stood frozen between her brothers, watching her husband unravel. This man she'd loved, served, built a life with. Part of her wanted to defend him, old instincts screaming that maybe if she just explained it right, maybe if she took some blame. But then she remembered Lila's laugh. Sharon's venom. Brandon turning away when she needed him most. Sandy. Adrian's voice softened as he leaned closer. Do you want to hear what they did? What we found? She nodded, throat too tight for words. Julian pulled a sleek black tablet from his jacket. The screen glowed to life in his hands. We've been looking for you for 3 months, ever since you stopped answering calls. His eyes flicked to Brandon with undisguised contempt. Hired investigators. They found some fascinating things. Sharon's face shifted from indignant to pale. You can't just come in here making accusations. Oh, I'm not making accusations, Julian said smoothly, turning the tablet toward the crowd of neighbors now pressed closer, phones recording everything. I'm presenting evidence. He tapped the screen once, and Sharon's voice filled the street, clear, unmistakable, recorded. Once she's out, the baby is ours. Brandon gets the house, Lila moves in, and that little brat never knows its real mother. The neighborhood exploded. Gasps erupted from every direction. Someone's phone clattered to the pavement. Oh my God! Did she just say? That's insane! Sharon lunged forward, hand reaching for the tablet. Turn that off. Turn it off. You have no right. Julian stepped back smoothly, letting security block her path. I have every right. She's my sister. He tapped the screen again. But there's more. Text messages appeared, projected now onto the tablet's larger display for everyone to see. Lila to Sharon, she's getting suspicious. Think she heard us last night. Sharon to Lila, doesn't matter. Brandon's already signed the papers. Lawyer says once she's out, custody goes to the father by default if she has no support system. Lila to Sharon, what if she fights it? Sharon to Lila, she won't. She never fights. That's why this works. Sandra's knees buckled. Adrian caught her before she hit the ground, his arm iron-strong around her waist. I've got you, he murmured. I've got you. Brandon's face had gone grey. Sandra, baby, listen, I didn't know they were planning. Julian swiped again. A bank transfer appeared on screen, $15,000 from Sharon's account to Brandon's, dated 2 months ago. The memo read, Divorce Settlement Advance. You were paid. Julian's voice could have cut diamond. Paid to get rid of her. That was for business, Brandon stammered. Your business went bankrupt last year, Adrian said coldly. We checked. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. Sharon spun toward the sound, panic flashing across her face. Who called the police? I did, Julian said simply. About 10 minutes ago. 2 patrol cars rolled into the cul-de-sac. Officers stepped out, hands on their belts, eyes scanning the scene. The Rolls-Royces, the security, the crowd, the tablet still glowing with evidence. One officer approached Julian. Mr. Bennett. Officer. Julian handed over the tablet. Financial fraud, conspiracy, emotional abuse of a pregnant woman, it's all documented. Lila finally reappeared at the front door, suitcase in hand, trying to slip past the security line. A guard stepped smoothly into her path. I'm going to need you to stay." "I don't have to." "Yeah," the officer said, walking toward her. "You do." Sharon covered her face, Brandon backed toward the house, hands shaking. And Sandra, still held upright by her brother, finally let herself breathe. The officer began questioning Sharon while another approached Lila. Cameras from KXAN Austin News van pulled up at the cul-de-sac's entrance. Word traveled fast in Texas suburbia. Adrian guided Sandra toward the Rolls-Royce, away from the chaos, away from the eyes and whispers. Julian stayed behind, speaking quietly with the officers, handing over documents from a leather briefcase that seemed to contain everything: bank statements, recordings, text threads, surveillance footage. Inside the car, Sandra sank into soft leather seats that smelled like luxury she'd forgotten existed. The door closed, muffling the noise outside, and suddenly the world felt smaller, safer. Adrian sat beside her, silent for a moment, just letting her breathe. "Why didn't you call us?" he finally asked, voice gentle but edged with hurt. Sandra's throat tightened. "I wanted to prove I could do it alone." Her voice cracked. "After Mom and Dad died, you both took over the company, handled everything. I felt useless. I thought if I could just build something on my own, maybe I'd feel like I mattered." Adrian's jaw clenched. "Sandy, you've always mattered." "I met Brandon at a charity event," she continued, tears slipping down her cheeks. "He didn't know who I was, didn't recognize the name. For the first time, someone liked me for me, not for the money or the connections." She laughed bitterly. "Turns out he didn't like me at all." Adrian reached over, squeezing her hand. "We looked for you everywhere. When you stopped answering calls 3 months ago, we hired investigators." His voice hardened. "They found the affair first, then Sharon's planning, the financial transfers. We were building a case, but when they said you were being forced out today," he shook his head. "We drove straight from Dallas." "You came for me," Sandra whispered, the realization finally sinking in. "We always come for you." Adrian's eyes glistened. "You're not alone, Sandy. You never were." Through the tinted window, she watched Brandon being questioned, watched Sharon arguing with officers, watched neighbors whispering and recording. These people had watched her suffer and done nothing. But her brothers had moved mountains. Julian opened the car door, sliding into the front seat. "Officers are taking statements. They'll likely press charges for fraud and conspiracy." He glanced back at Sandra. "But that's only if you want to proceed." Sandra looked at her belly, at the life growing inside her. Then she looked at her brothers. "I want to proceed." Julian nodded once, firm and resolute. "Then we proceed." He pulled out his phone, already dialing their attorney. "I'll have legal draw up everything by tonight. Restraining orders, custody protections, asset freezes." Adrian squeezed Sandra's hand. "First, we're taking you to the doctor, making sure you and the baby are okay." "I'm fine," Sandra started, but even as she said it, another cramp rippled through her abdomen. "You're not fine," Adrian said gently. "And that's okay, you don't have to be fine right now." The convoy pulled away from the Montgomery house, leaving behind flashing police lights, news cameras, and a neighborhood that would gossip about this day for years. Sandra watched it all shrink in the rearview mirror, the porch where she'd been humiliated, the window where Lila had smirked, the driveway where her husband had abandoned her. "Gone." Julian ended his call, glancing back. "Legal's on it. By morning, Brandon won't be able to touch a single asset, and Sharon's accounts are frozen pending investigation." He paused. "They also found something else. Sharon took out a life insurance policy on you 6 weeks ago." Sandra's blood ran cold. "What?" "High-value policy. She's listed as beneficiary." Julian's voice was ice. "Which means if something happened to you during childbirth, she gets paid," Adrian finished, fury barely contained. "She wasn't just trying to take your baby, Sandy. She was betting on you not surviving." The weight of it crushed her chest. She couldn't breathe, couldn't process. Hey, look at me." Adrian turned her face toward his. "That will never happen. You're safe now. Do you hear me? You're safe." Tears poured down her face, not from fear, but from relief so overwhelming it hurt. Julian reached back, resting a hand on her knee. "Remember when we were kids and you fell off your bike? Scraped your knee so bad you thought you'd never walk again." Sandra laughed through her tears. "You carried me 3 blocks home. And I told you." "Bennetts don't stay down," Sandra finished, voice steadying. "We get back up." "Exactly." Julian's rare smile softened his features. "And this time, you're not getting up alone." The car pulled into the hospital entrance, Medical staff were already waiting. Adrian must have called ahead. For the first time in months, Sandra didn't feel like she was drowning. She felt like she was breathing. The doctor confirmed what Sandra already knew. She and the baby were physically fine, but her stress levels were dangerously elevated. Any more strain like this could trigger early labor, the doctor warned, eyes serious. You need rest, safety, and peace. Adrian nodded. She'll have all three. They were preparing to leave when a commotion erupted outside the exam room, raised voices, security intervening, someone pleading. Please, I just need 5 minutes. She's my wife. Brandon. Sandra's entire body tensed. The heart monitor beeped faster. Julian was already on his feet, moving toward the door. Stay here, he told Sandra, then stepped into the hallway. Through the small window, she watched her brother block Brandon's path, watched her husband's face crumble, watched him try to push past, watched security hold him back. Sandra. Brandon's voice cracked with desperation. Baby, please, I was manipulated. Mom put ideas in my head. Lila seduced me. I never wanted this. I love you. Adrian appeared beside Julian, arms crossed. You don't get to call her that anymore. She's carrying my child. Brandon's voice rose. I have rights. Rights. Julian's laugh was sharp. You signed documents agreeing to abandon her. You took money to divorce her quietly. You stood there while your mother plotted to steal her baby. He stepped closer. What rights do you think you have left? Brandon's eyes found Sandra through the window. His expression shifted to something that might have been genuine remorse, or might have been panic at losing everything. Sandy, please. He pressed his palm against the glass. I made a mistake, the worst mistake, but we can fix this. We can go to counseling, start over. For a moment, just a moment, Sandra felt the old pull, the instinct to forgive, to smooth things over, to believe that maybe love could be enough. Then Lila's voice echoed in her memory. Once she's out, the baby is ours. Sharon's recorded words. That little brat never knows its real mother. Brandon's silence when she'd needed him most. Something inside her, something that had bent and bent and bent for years, finally snapped. She looked at Julian through the window and shook her head once. Just once. Julian nodded, understanding immediately. He turned back to Brandon. She doesn't want to see you. Ever. You can't keep me from her. Watch us. Adrian's voice was final. Security escorted Brandon out. His protests faded down the hallway. And Sandra finally let go. 3 days later, Sandra sat in Julian's downtown Dallas office, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, leather chairs, a desk that probably cost more than Brandon's car. Their attorney, Margaret Chen, laid out documents in neat stacks. These are your options, Margaret said, her tone professional but kind. Criminal charges against Sharon for fraud and conspiracy, civil suit against Lila for emotional distress and harassment, divorce proceedings with full custody and asset protection. She paused. Or you can walk away, take a settlement, sign NDAs, move on quietly. Julian leaned against his desk, arms crossed. We'll support whatever you decide, Sandy. Adrian sat beside her. No pressure, no judgment. This is entirely your call. Sandra stared at the documents, heart pounding. Walking away would be easier. No court dates, no publicity, no reliving the trauma. She could disappear into her brother's world, raise her baby in peace, pretend none of this happened. But then what? Sharon would face no consequences. Lila would move on to the next vulnerable woman. Brandon would charm someone else, play the victim, repeat the cycle. And her baby, would grow up knowing their mother had been too afraid to fight back. What if I'm not strong enough? Sandra whispered. Adrian turned her face toward his. You stood on that porch 7 months pregnant while they destroyed you in front of the entire neighborhood, and you didn't collapse. His voice was fierce. If that's not strength, I don't know what is. They'll drag my name through the media, Sandra said. They'll twist everything, make me look. Let them try, Julian said quietly. We have evidence, recordings, bank transfers. The truth isn't up for debate. He crouched in front of her. But more than that, we have resources they can't imagine. If they come for you, they come for all of us. Sandra looked down at her belly, felt her baby kick. Strong, insistent, alive. This child deserved a mother who fought, not a mother who ran. She reached for the pen, hand trembling but steady. File everything, she said, signing the first document. Criminal charges, civil suits, full custody. I want it all on record. Margaret nodded, gathering the signed papers. I'll have these filed by end of business today. Julian squeezed her shoulder. Proud of you, sis. Sandra exhaled slowly, feeling the weight shift, not disappearing, but changing into something she could carry. Something that felt like power. 6 weeks later, Sandra stood in front of floor-to-ceiling windows in her brother's Dallas penthouse, watching the sun set over the city, gold and crimson bleeding across the skyline. Her hand rested on her belly. The baby kicked, strong and restless. Behind her, the legal outcomes had settled into place like dominoes falling. Sharon faced felony fraud charges and awaited trial. Lila had been sued into silence, her social media deleted, her reputation shattered. Brandon lost half his assets in the divorce, his business dissolved, and faced supervised visitation only, if Sandra allowed it. She hadn't decided yet. The penthouse door opened. Adrian's wife Emma entered with chamomile tea, setting it gently on the side table. How are you feeling? Heavy, Sandra smiled. But good. Julian's twins burst in moments later, eyes wide. Aunt Sandy, can we feel the baby kick? She laughed, nodding, and they pressed small hands against her stomach, gasping with delight when the baby moved. That's our cousin, the youngest squealed. Adrian appeared in the doorway, leaning against the frame. Legal called. Sharon's attorney tried to negotiate a plea deal. Margaret shut it down. He paused. They're going to trial. Sandra nodded slowly. Good. You sure? Julian joined them by the window. It'll mean testifying, media coverage. I'm sure. Her voice was calm, certain. I'm not hiding anymore. The baby kicked again, harder this time, and Sandra smiled, remembering the woman who'd stood on that porch, suitcase in hand, believing she had no one. She'd been so wrong. Emma squeezed her shoulder. Dinner's almost ready. Your favorite, chicken tortilla soup. The twins tugged at her hands. Come on, Aunt Sandy. As they led her toward the dining room, Sandra glanced back at the window one last time, at her reflection standing strong, belly round with life, surrounded by family who'd moved heaven and earth to protect her. This wasn't the life she'd planned. It was better. She whispered to her belly, voice soft but fierce. You're going to know love, real love, the kind that shows up, that fights, that never abandons you. She smiled. And you're going to know you come from strength. Adrian and Julian flanked her sides as they walked together toward the dining room, toward laughter, toward warmth, toward home. Together. Whole. The way it should have always been. What do you think happened to Sandra next? Drop a comment below.